Hello everyone, you're watching Sightline on MNB World. Our guest today is Mr. Takacs, Head of Mongolia at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So Mr. Takacs, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me here.
So you're Head of Mongolia at EBRD, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So could you tell us what you've been working on in Mongolia right now?
So thank you very much for the first question. It's important to know that we are here in the country since 15 years, so we are celebrating our 15th anniversary. And we are very proud what we have achieved up to now here in the country. We have invested more than 2.2 billion US dollars, and mainly in the private sector. So our current portfolio has a private sector participation of 83%. We were also the first one who financed a renewable energy facility here in the country, really utilizing the great potential the country has in producing clean energy. And our focus currently is to support the private sector because they really have suffered based on COVID-19 and the impact of the crisis. And we see here more and more demand. And of course, gender is a very important question here as well.
So about the gender, EBRD's Central Asia Women in Business program has opened its operations in Mongolia. So could you tell us how was the program initiated in the first place, and also what is the program aiming to achieve in Mongolia?
I think it's really a milestone to have now the Women in Business program also here in Mongolia. And we see a lot of support from the government side, but also by the other stakeholders. Overall, you may know that the EBRD has defined a new strategy at the end of last year, and gender and equality of opportunity and gender equality is one of the three cornerstones of the new strategy. So it was very important to include Mongolia in that work as well, and through the establishment of a steering committee, we see really a great step forward in this regard. So as EBRD, we have developed a distinct and quite unique approach. We are combining private sector investments with advisory services as well as policy dialogue to promote gender inclusion and specifically women entrepreneurship in Mongolia. And we have a strong partnership with a Women Entrepreneur Finance Initiative, which approved our Central Asian Women in Business program in April 2019.
Along with 3 more countries in the world.
Yeah, it includes Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and of course what I'm very proud of, Mongolia, which is quite important for us and our operation here. And what should it do? It should help to support the integration of women into the economic life and specifically women entrepreneurship. And through the combination of investments, advisory services, and policy dialogue, we hope to create, together with the government, an enabling environment for women entrepreneurs here in the country. What I think is important to say that we, as I said before, we have 3 pillars. The first pillar is providing access to financing through our partner institutions in the country. We already started here. We, together with a non-bank financial institution, Trans Capital, we offer specific training and investment services for women-led businesses in the country. The second part is the provision of advisory services. As you may know, we have a very established advisory for small businesses program here in Mongolia, which also has a distinctive focus on female entrepreneurs to provide really tailor-made and specific advisory services, covering a variety of areas, topic areas. And the third one is the policy dialogue, bringing private sector and the public sector together. And that is exactly what the steering committee, which was just recently launched, will do.
The National Committee on Gender Equality is established.
Yes. Which is on the level of a National Center for Gender Equality and gets really full government support in this regard. Question is all the time, how do you identify and how you define women-led businesses? And I think that is one of the first tasks the steering committee will do, because that will allow a very targeted approach to provide our financing as well as the advisory services.
So how would you define the importance of supporting the women-led businesses in general in Mongolia?
In general, Mongolia really stands out when it comes to gender equality. We see a high level of education on women level. We see an inclusion, we see a supportive legal and regulatory environment. However, we also see that women-led businesses were more impacted by COVID-19 than male-led businesses. And we see also a move from women from the formal sector into the informal sector, which of course provides less security for them in the long run.
When you say formal from informal, can you give us an example?
So I covered some statistics. Normally a good indicator is sole proprietorship. That means single person companies. And here we saw an increase from around 30% to more than 60%, meaning that women are now more working in the informal sector than the formal sector, which is a pity, because to have an inclusive society and inclusive economies, you need a strong participation of the women workforce in the economy. And we see also that women are underrepresented in high growth industries, as well as on high level management position. When you see it from a ranking perspective, globally, based on the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Index, Mongolia ranks 69 out of 156 countries. So it's not bad. It's already quite developed. But as I said before, there's still a lot to go. In reality, we would like all the time to be number one. It's hard to achieve. But when we see it also in comparison with the peer countries in Central Asia, then really here Mongolia is on the forefront.
On the forefront.
On the forefront.
One of the top countries.
And when we see on economic inclusion and participation, Mongolia ranks globally 23rd. So it's really quite a tremendous achievement what was done up to now. To give you some other data, so women-owned businesses among the small and medium-sized enterprises are 44%. But as mentioned before, when it comes to sole proprietorship, meaning one-person companies, we speak from an increase from 31% in 2015 to more than 67% in 2018. So it doubled during that. And it is also a reflection of declining formal labor participation. So around of the workforce, 53.4% of women are active in the workforce compared to 68.3% of men. Better data from 2019, as newer ones are currently not available. And of course, as mentioned before, COVID-19 had a severe impact on all the companies here, but specifically on women-led businesses. Various studies from the Asian Development Bank, World Bank, UNIDO, and other institutions have clearly shown that impact.
So what's the factor behind that? Why are women-led businesses are getting more impacted by the COVID-19?
So what the studies have shown that women have suffered more in terms of loss of revenues. They had problems with the supply chain, with access to raw materials, and reduced demand for the products and services. That, I think, is partly also connected with the lockdowns. When you, for example, own a barbershop, you had no chance to make business because the doors were closed. So what is very important is also that women are active not only in the service industry, but also in other sectors, which would make them less vulnerable when it comes to the impact of a crisis, specifically of a pandemic like we are seeing now. And what is important is also providing increased access to finance for the women-led businesses. And that is exactly what we are trying to do with our partner institutions. As mentioned before, we are working here together with non-bank financial institutions as well as partner banks to have specifically designed women products which helps them to conduct their economic activities and know that there is a special instrument, a favorable instrument available that should help them to overcome the COVID-19 impact easier. And that will be supported through specific advisory services provided to women-led businesses. And we saw also TransCapital was our first partner institution in this regard, and we already see now a strong uptake of financial products, which is a good sign. That means it's really demand-driven and it's very much targeted.
So how long have you been working with the non-banking financial institutes like Trans Capital when you're supporting the women in business financially?
So we have a long tradition working with non-bank financial institutions as well as partner banks here in the country, almost since we started our operations here. But the non-bank financial institution sector becomes more and more important now because we are focusing very much according to our country strategy of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. And then you need partner financial institutions which have access to that target group and to offer them exactly the financing instruments they require.
So how many women have received financial support through the program?
Overall, the program has reached a very high number of women-led enterprises. And if you cascade it down, I think we reached around 700 to 1,000 either sole entrepreneurship or companies, but it's very hard to come up with exact numbers. So that's really an estimated guess. That's also the reason why we are supporting the National Statistical Office to provide gender disaggregated data about women entrepreneurship in the country, because that would allow us to get really facts. What was the impact? Who was impacted most? Where can we improve our services and our financing together with the government and the other stakeholders to really have a very strong outreach, specifically in the rural areas?
So about the finance sector, you have reached to 700 to 1,000 women so far. So about the advisory services and also policy dialogue, the other two focus of your program, what achievements have you made?
In the program, when we speak about women-led businesses and in regard to the steering committee, so I think the first success is, of course, the implementation of the steering committee, which is chaired by the Minister of Labour and Social Protection, because that's the perfect policy dialogue platform, where private sector and public sector meet each other and really identify the problems and the gaps and come up with measured improvement levers. Meaning, when you have the involvement of donor agencies and IFIs like EBRD, we will use that as platform to exchange experiences and also to define our advisory services and investments afterwards accordingly, in alignment with the other stakeholders in the country. And don't forget, in the policy dialogue, in the steering committee, there is also a civil society included. So you really get the views from various angles, which helps a lot to come up with a customized program, and additionally one which has an increased chance to succeed. Because in reality, what you would like to achieve, that it becomes normality, that whoever you are, if you have a good business model, you must have access to, on one hand, an enabling environment, support measures, but also access to finance to really succeed. And I think we are here on a good path. From the first meeting, which took place just a couple of weeks ago, we see that a strong support by the government, which you need, because you may need some changes in the legal and regulatory environment to make it easier and to remove barriers for women entrepreneurship. And based on that, then you can start with the advisory services. What we do additionally is we are starting institutional capacity building. We will work here with the Bank of Mongolia and the Financial Regulatory Committee, FRC, to train their personnel in the area of women-led businesses and to create a talent pool which can also take up higher managerial positions in the private sector or in financial institutions at a later stage. So it's a forward-looking program where we see what we need, the support, and on the other hand, the chances really to succeed based on the high education level we see here in the country, and also the willingness and interest of the financial institutions to provide financing instruments as well.
So, is there any target focus of the type of businesses that the women are doing? If they're conducting more eco-friendly businesses that you are providing more support, do you have any preferences over the type of businesses?
So in reality, we are speaking across sectors. We know that Mongolia is dominated by the extractive sector, by the mining sector in reality, where we see less women really in active roles. Here is a chance to improve as well. But where the really future chance is for everybody is greening of the economy in Mongolia. We are speaking up here about currently with the National Development Agency to support them in creating a green portfolio of investment projects, which may offer a lot of opportunities for women-based enterprises to support the projects or to lead those projects as well. But greening of the economy is not only now the trend, it will also be the trend of the future.
Yes.
And it will help to reduce air pollution here in the country and to fully utilize the potential of Mongolia. Because you have so much wind and sun. In reality, you should be a net exporter of energy.
So how would you see the future and also its future results of the Women in Business program? What are you trying to achieve in the future?
So to increase our impact, we would like to increase our number of partner financial institutions, to have a wider outreach, a strong focus also on rural areas, because rural development is very important. Currently, I see a lot of improvement potential in this regard. Then another thing is our advisory services for small businesses is increasing their activities in providing support to women-led businesses as well. So that means we are increasing the capacity of those companies and at the same time also providing a broader access to financing, supported by the policy dialogue. And I think what is currently underway is the steering committee will approve a roadmap for development of women-led entrepreneurship in the country. And we are, of course, ready to support the implementation of a roadmap. So it's a very strategic approach, which I like very much.
So, Mr. Takacs, our time is coming to an end, unfortunately. So, what final message do you have for our audience?
In this case, I would like to directly speak to the women in Mongolia. Just say, take the chance. Use our support measures, use our advisory services, use the financing available, and grow your business. We see a great chance for women-led businesses in the country, also in the future.
So, Mr. Takacs, thank you very much for coming to our studio and talking about the activities of your organization and also the Women in Business program.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me here.
You've watched Sightline. Our guest today was Mr. Hannes Takacs, Head of Mongolia at European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.